Honkai Impact, the game I've been playing for the past 8 months or so, is extremely fun, has a great story, great systems, and overall is an enjoyable experience. But it isn't without its problems. In this top 6 Honkai problems video, I'm going to go over 6 problems that I believe Honkai suffers from right now. Bear in mind that this is my opinion, and if you don't find them to be a problem, then you are wrong because I'm always right. And with that, let's get into the video. The UI for Honkai is one of my biggest annoyances that I had to unfortunately put up with and just learn how to maneuver around it. While the UI is very thematic with the home screen being the Hyperion flying with some nice looking holographic buttons to take you to different menus, firstly it's this main menu that could be improved. While it is pretty, it is also very bulky and clunky with the player level and resources covering the top row of the screen. The left side of the screen has a few vaguely named buttons like the events, which as it says takes you to the events, but at the same time going through the attack button you will find an events tab that takes you to the same place. Bonuses takes you to the daily login rewards, so they could just call it daily login rewards. And the leeks, tomato, and onions tab takes you to the store. Well, wait a minute actually, after 8 months of playing I still have no idea what LTO stands for, and at this point I'm too afraid to ask. The bottom left has the friends and chat box, which is actually fine. It can also be minimized, so that's nice. The right side of the screen has this rather obnoxious banner that cycles through pretty much useless information because you automatically open the news tab every time you launch the game and can very easily press the designated news button on the left side of the screen to get more information. We'll skip the attack button for now as that is a whole point of its own and move to the Valkyrie tab, which is fine. It takes you to what you'd expect. The Valkyrie list. Equipment could be changed to inventory, as more often than not you'll be going into this menu to look at everything but your equipment. The elf button could be merged with the Valkyrie tab and be an internal subsection, and the supply button, which although when you press it, it gives you the option of 3 other areas of the game, the in-game shop, the MTX shop, and the foundry, it also takes you to the gacha section of the game. And just before we enter the attack button, we have the bottom right of the screen which has the Armada button, or the so-called guild button, taking you to the Armada menu, which looks fine internally, and the Dorm button, which is an amalgamation of different menus and buttons like the Dorm shop and the regular shop, which take you to the same place, and the Errands console, as well as the Errands button, again taking you to the same place. The Expedition button can also be found in the attack section, just in better format. The Valkyrie button is different from the main menu Valkyrie tab, this one providing a different system to do with dorm levels. And everything else in this menu is specific to it, so we won't dwell on it any longer. Moving back to the attack button, I'll try to keep this as short as possible. Upon entering, you'll be greeted with boxes of many other different sections. Most of these are fine except for the Material Expeditions, which will take you to the Daily Energy Spending section, as well as the Expeditions tab that we found in the Dorm, just this time it looks much better. Chronicles and Co-op are old content, while Story is the story progression, and Open World is the collection of 4 open worlds Honkai has. Their internal menus are fine. Swiping up or pressing the Challenge button on the left side of the screen takes us to the Daily/Weekly Grinds tab, which has the Abyss, Memorial Arena, Universal Mirage, and Elysian Realm, all aptly named and all aptly displayed. But people with the eyes of a hawk will notice the arrow to the right that takes us to 2 other options: Character Trials and Deep Archives, both one-time play systems, which is fine. But why does the Attack tab have all of the tabs neatly packed in different box sizes, while the Challenge tab needs the arrow to another screen? This is just very unnecessary. And last, the Events tab, which as I said before can also be found on the main menu. All these different overlaps in buttons and unnecessary interfaces makes getting to where you want to be too long. Let's take getting to the Dorm shop as an example, a rather important menu and one you will visit extremely frequently if you're looking to buy different resources and character fragments. There are 3 different ways to get to this menu. Firstly, you can press the Dorm button on the main screen and then the Dorm shop in the back of this menu. Secondly, you can press the Dorm button on the main menu and then press the shop in the bottom right of the screen. And thirdly, you can press the supply button on the main menu and then press shop. This is just unnecessary. Having just one button on the main menu will do just fine, Mihoyo. Bosses are an integral part in increasing difficulty as well as variety in many games, and Honkai is no outlier. Honkai Impact's boss design can be described easily as fluctuating. Some bosses are rather well designed, balanced, and enjoyable to fight, like Sword Husk Nihilus and False God Otto, both having a large plethora of normal attacks and area of effect abilities to dodge, as well as boss-specific mechanics like Nihilus's Imaginary Taint build-up management and Otto's triple shield that can only be broken by dodging his attacks. While other bosses can be best described as forced difficulty or boring design, like Triple S Banara's, who instead of having an intricate elemental trauma mechanic, has a near forced requirement of 3 different elemental characters, and on top of this, very bare bones normal attacks and area of effects. Triple S Hodo as well brings nothing unique to the table, just an excruciatingly large ice shield that only one specific character with the correct gear can break effectively without the player going insane. There are a few more examples like Dual Blade Nihilus or Hephaestus being horrendous, but these are very specific to the Elysian realm. Other than these bosses, none other stand out in a good way or a bad way. They are just very generic damage sponge bosses. And this is what I mean by Honkai's boss design being described as fluctuating. Bosses are either balanced and enjoyable, or mind-numbing and painful, or forgettably mid. Types are a problem I want to cover very quickly. Honkai as of right now has 5 different types: Psychic, Mecha, Biologic, Imaginary, and Quantum. The first 3 were in the game from the very beginning, while Imaginary and Quantum were added in future patches. Where the problem stems from is the recent 2 types added, Imaginary and Quantum. I should clarify though that the first 3 types are in a counter triangle, meaning Psychic counters Mecha, Mecha counters Biologic, and Biologic counters Psychic. And with this info, you would think that Imaginary and Quantum would counter each other, right? Well, you're wrong. They counter themselves. Now this isn't really relevant to the main point, but it's nice to know. Psychic, Mecha, and Biologic are made rather redundant when put against the 2 other types, specifically Imaginary, but not because of the reason of having no damage bonus from countering or damage reduction from being countered, but it's from the raw design nature of Imaginary enemies. Imaginary enemies have 2 HP bars, the Shell, which is the first, and the Seed, which is the second. The problem is the Shell being able to fully recover if you don't defeat the Seed quick enough, essentially making it so if you're playing one of the first 3 types, which would be neutral to Imaginary, you will still struggle to defeat the Seed before the Shell recovers. Quantum isn't so much of a problem as it just has a constant damage reduction, while it has its cores intact, which can be collapsed in a variety of different ways. This is further exaggerated by the fact that most of the enemies you are facing in the game are Imaginary or Quantum, thus making the Psychic, Mecha, and Biologic types more and more useless. And to top it off even further, the same thing can be said about the characters. Imaginary characters are infinitely stronger than every other type, seeing as Imaginary characters specifically, and more specifically Palatinus Equinox, has the ability to damage the Seed directly, bypassing the existence of the Shell, which makes her a near must pick when going up against Imaginary enemies, and the same can be said about the future characters coming in 6.4. Now, let's take a brief stomp at the quality of life section, and by no means is Honkai a game that lacks quality of life features, as I believe it has plenty, like auto-completing many missions as long as you've played through it once before. But there are certain areas that completely lack that quality of life touch. One area being the Elysian realm and the process of restarting a run. Instead of the usual pause the game and pressing restart or retry, you have to cancel the whole run, go back to the main hub, walk up to the console, or press the button in the top right, confirm all the characters, items, and supports, and then you can begin the run again. This on average takes about 30 to 40 seconds, and to the average player this doesn't matter, but when you are retrying the Elysian realm to get a perfect run to improve your times, it adds up quickly. Although this may not fall under quality of life, entering a new stage in Elysian realm, enemy spawn locations are randomized for absolutely no reason. Just thought I'd add that because it annoys the hell out of me. Another small area that could thrive from quality of life upgrades are the open world tasks. While these tasks, which you will have an option of 3 sets of 5 per week, are very rewarding for the time needed to complete them, it's the obscurity of the task in conjunction with the differences of accessibility between the 4 different open worlds that makes it unbearable to do. The first open world, the Sakura Samsara, has very boring and mundane tasks like kill 5 enemies or pick up 10 items, but has the perk of being able to teleport directly on top of the task. The second open world, the Shixel HQ, has the same boring and mundane tasks, but without the perk of teleporting directly onto the task. The third open world, AFO 1, has ever so slightly more interesting tasks, but without the perk of teleporting directly onto them, but instead you have specific map waypoints. And the final open world, AFO 2, has a larger variety but still mostly mundane tasks, but the same waypoint system as AFO 1. For pure efficiency, the choice would be the Sakura Samsara, as you can teleport directly to the task, which doesn't make much sense to me though, as this was the first open world, and from my understanding, a system is meant to develop for the better. But as it stands, the Sakura Samsara is the only open world with the feature that makes doing 15 of these tasks per week actually bearable. Number 5 is going to be story related, but don't worry, there won't be spoilers. I'm going to be focusing on the characters that you are given as trial characters and how it feels like these characters are just not up to scratch to do the story and enjoy it, at least for the past few chapters. I'm going to look at chapter 32 and 33 for now though. We are given 4 main DPS characters in these chapters, one for each element. Hersher of Thunder for lightning, Hersher of Flame Silent for fire, Hersher of Reason for ice, and Stygian Nymph for physical. All of these characters are either using gear that would be classified as 1 or 2 tiers below their current best in slot, or are using non-max level gear. Or in the Hersher of Truth and Reason's case, it's both of these. Both their weapons are level 60 instead of 65, lowering their base attack, making fights take ever so slightly longer. Hersher of Thunder has the Domain of Sanction equip, which is her on-release signature weapon. It would make more than perfect sense though for her to be using her current signature weapon, the Seven Thunders of Retribution, as she has acquired it canonically. As for Stigmata, she is using Monet T and Ishikawa Goemon middle and bottom, which is not even her on-release signatures, which would be full set Benares, let alone her current best in slot full set Handel. So this version of Hersher of Thunder has been downgraded to being less than what she was on her official release 2 years after her release. But it doesn't just stop there. Hersher of Reason is the same case. Her weapon is a level 60 Domain of Revelation, which is 1 tier downgrade from her current best in slot, Star of Eden Anti-Entropy, as well as her Stigma is full set Anna Sharak, which is, to be fair, isn't terrible as it is a full set, but it isn't her on-release signature, which is full set Welt Yang, nor is it her current best in slot full set Willows. These downgrades are unnecessary as the character story-wise would have the newest gears, and power-wise would greatly benefit from having them as killing the enemies required for daily tasks takes way too long, as one of my accounts has absolutely no usable characters of my own, so I do have to use them, and it does just take way too long. And to quickly comment on the monetization perspective, it doesn't make sense to give the player the worst version of the character in hopes that they will realize that they could roll and get a stronger version. If anything, it does the exact opposite, and it discourages the player from wanting to get the character as their first hands-on experience with them is weak and unfulfilling. For this last point, I'm going to talk about co-op. Co-op in Honkai doesn't exactly mean just any form of teaming up with other players and doing content. It more specifically means the co-op raid or dungeon system that provides you with divine keys and pre-arm resources. Now, from my understanding, this system has not been updated in a very long time. If I was to hazard a guess, it would be about 2 years, and I'm basing this off of the bosses we encounter. But even after its lack of updates, this system still maintains relevance. On paper, this doesn't sound bad, but there is one major issue. When a system isn't updated but maintains relevance, it's the newer and newer players that suffer. So let me paint the picture. When the co-op system was added, so were divine keys that needed the resources acquired from co-op to upgrade, and these divine keys are good weapons for specific characters and also provide an account-wide stat boost to many different stats. When the system launched, all players were partaking in this system to get the divine keys as fast as possible, thus making the queue times and clear times relatively quick. But as this system was built upon, the game added more and more divine keys, but they slowly shifted the divine keys from requiring co-op material to requiring standard weapon material, basically making it so older players have the old divine keys at max level and don't need to do co-op anymore, in turn making it rather difficult in many ways for newer players to get what would be classified as the bare minimum. This could be easily remedied, ironically, by making the co-op system single player. Now, I wanted to make this video mainly because it was actually suggested to me to make this video, but also because Honkai is coming to the end of a major part of its lifespan. I believe the devs called it the first part of Honkai Impact's story or something like that from the recent videos that they put out on their YouTube channel. They said something like that. It's coming to the end of something major, but the game still has a lot of problems, mainly the UI and the co-op problems. It's really not new player friendly, and I just wanted to make a small video, maybe raising awareness about these problems, as well as venting for me, because some of these bosses, cough cough, Husk Nihilus, and pretty much any version of him, cough cough, they're just not enjoyable to deal with. So I wanted to make a small video and maybe bring a bit of awareness. Who knows, maybe something will change in the future, be the change you want to see. So with that, I hope this video was informative and helpful, and I hope you guys did enjoy. If you learned something, give the video a like or something like that. Maybe subscribe to the channel, but do whatever you want. Like, subscribe, that would be very much appreciated. Hope you guys enjoyed, and have a great day.